Rube, there's already been a bunch of NFL news this week, but next week's going to be even crazier.
Next week's going to be wild. It always is. Those first couple of days of free agency, even the first couple of hours of free agency, a lot going on, and we'll be on top of all of it as it happens.
Yeah, looking forward to next week. Looking forward to this podcast. This is Eagle Eye, brought to you by Nissan, Reuben Frank, and Dave Zangaro. Rube, on Tuesday's podcast, we went through offense by position and gave need levels, maybe talked about a few possible free agents. So we're going to do that on defense today. We have some updates on the A.J. Brown situation. I know people are tired of it, but we'll try to get through that quickly. And then we each picked a free agent, an external free agent for each of the positions where the need is highest for the Eagles. So we'll have some fun going through that and then questions a little bit later. But let's start this pod. We went through the offense on the last pod. Let's go through the Eagles' defensive positions, and we'll just start along the line. We'll start with edge rusher. I have the need at edge rusher high. So to kind of go through who the Eagles have under contract, it's Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith, Jose Ramirez, and Taquan Graham. They're pending free agents: Jalen Phillips, Brandon Graham, Joshua Uche, Azeez Ojulari, and Agbo Okoronkwo. So this is a high need for them. This is a premium position. But I think it really starts with Jalen Phillips. Can they bring this guy back?
Yeah, it's kind of the question of the offseason. We've seen so many different wildly varying estimates of his value, what he's gonna command on the open market, and we won't really know until we get going early next week what that's going to look like. But it's going to be a lot. It's not a great free agency class at edge, and he's the cream of the crop. Even though this is a guy who's never had more than 8.5 sacks in the season. That was back his rookie year. He's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a good player. He was productive when he was here. Didn't have a ton of sacks. Had some good pressures. Thought he was a guy that made the players around him better, and fit really well in the scheme, in the culture. Good locker room guy. He wants to be here. So I think there's a chance. But if that number starts drifting higher and higher over $20 million, it's not going to happen. So the money's just not there. I think a lot of the mystery in this position has to do with Nolan Smith. Like, if I was confident Nolan Smith was going to be a double-digit sack guy every year in his career, which as a first-round pick, even a late first-round pick, he kind of should be, I don't think there'd be as much urgency. Now, look, you need a rotation. You need three, but I don't think there'd be as much urgency to spend that kind of money on the third edge. But Nolan Smith did not have a productive season. He was hurt. He came back. He had 3 sacks for the season, missed 5 games. If I was confident that he was the player that they anticipated when they drafted him, I wouldn't be interested in spending this kind of money on Jalen Phillips. We just don't know what Nolan Smith's going to turn into. He's had one really good stretch 2 years ago. So that kind of plays into it. What's the Eagles' expectation of Nolan Smith, and how does that affect their urgency to add or to keep at the edge?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you know, I've talked about this. Like, if you had to hitch your wagon to one of those players, would it be Nolan Smith or Jalen Phillips? And I think we differ on that. That's fine. But it's something the Eagles do have to figure out, because if they're going to pay Jalen Phillips on a 3 or 4 year deal, it is really going to limit their ability to sign Nolan Smith down the line. Because I think we both agree that Jalix Hunt is a player that I don't think you want to see leave. He is still like clearly ascending. I couldn't be any more bullish on a Jalix Hunt. So it's a kind of a fascinating situation right now, because this move isn't made in a vacuum. This move could change the way they build long term. And Nolan's a guy that I don't think they ideally want to let go. They drafted him in the first round. He's a good locker room guy. I think they like him. He has been productive at times, but if it comes down to him or Jalen Phillips, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think if it came down, all things being equal, I would keep Nolan. I think you would keep Jalen. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any correct or incorrect answer, because there's unknowns with both these guys.
Yeah, certainly. And like injury concerns with both of them.
Sure.
Jalen, it's been well documented, his injuries. And then Nolan Smith has kind of had the recurring thing the last couple of years that's hindered him. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there. From my perspective on Jalen Phillips is that he's just like a different body type than the other two guys. He's kind of that that bigger body defensive end, and I like to have complementary skill sets and body types at that position. I think that's helpful. It's not a necessity, but I think it's a good thing to have. And I like Jalen Phillips. I think in free agency, a lot of the time, if you're going to spend big money, I'd rather spend big money on a guy I think could potentially still be ascending as opposed to just paying for past production. I think that me, at least, that's a wiser way to do business. Do you agree with that? Like, just the idea that, like, I think there's a really good chance Jalen Phillips' best football is still ahead of him. And I'm not saying that not true about Nolan Smith, but he's not up yet. I'm looking around at like other potential free agents.
Yeah, I think that's always been Howie's philosophy. He loves getting guys coming off their initial 4-year contract who are still 26, 27.
And that's kind of changed in a way because those price tags have exploded. Like, I think back to that, 2016 free agency class when he signed Brandon Brooks and Rodney McLeod. At the time, like, that was what Howie wanted to do. But then it was like, man, those guys are starting to get a ton of money because there's all this cap space the teams have and they feel the need to spend it. So like it kind of flipped after a while where they said, we're not going to spend that medium tier money anymore. We're just going to go for blue chippers.
Yeah. And the cap has kind of changed the way teams do things. But I think ideally Howie would love to bring in guys who are younger and, like you said, still have room to grow as a player. And I mean, that's always going to be the goal. You don't want to get a guy on the way down.
What do you think about the whole Max Crosby situation? Just before we started this podcast, Lane Johnson, I think, is having some fun on Twitter, gave a little eyes emoji and an @ to Max Crosby. I think that's probably just Lane having some fun, but we know the Eagles aren't opposed to star hunting. We know that they were interested in recent years in Myles Garrett and in Micah Parsons. Do you think there's a chance that Max Crosby could end up here?
I'm never going to say there's not a chance when it comes to Howie because he surprised us before. I just think the asking price and what his new contract would look like and the assets you'd have to give up in the trade would make it really difficult to pull that off. I'd love to see it. Great player still. Just not sure it's realistic to think about it.
Yeah, it's tough to say what's realistic and what isn't, but yeah, it's tough to give up the assets and then like his contract is actually movable, but the assets are tough. Now, if we're talking about if the Eagles trade a big name player and they acquire assets, then you have more to use in the trade. So like from that perspective, I guess it's possible. He'd be fun to watch here. There's no question about it. I mean, I think he would fit. It's just a matter of, and there are other teams that are going to be vying for his services. It's not like
he would fit anywhere,
pretty much, and that's
the kind of player.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's an excellent player. But the other thing I do have in the back of my mind about Max Crosby is the usage. He's played so much football that I never want to project when a player is going to start to decline. But with him, I do wonder a little bit just with the snaps that he's played. He's been over like 90% most of his seasons. So I would think that eventually that's going to catch up with him. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. He's only 28. I kind of thought he was older. He hasn't missed many games. He's been pretty durable. Some guys are just wired that way. They're just built that way where they can play 90% of the snaps. I wouldn't really worry about accumulated.
It's rare at that position, though.
It is. I mean, he's the leader every year when you look up snap counts at that spot. But I would sure take him if I had the chance.
And just from like a personality standpoint, like, gosh, he would fit this city.
Yeah, he really would.
Yeah. Do you think so? My thought about Jalen Phillips, going back to him, is the longer he's not signed, the less likely it is that he's back. Because like he's at this point, I'd kind of be surprised if he doesn't hit free agency. And once he hit free agency, I don't think I'm breaking news here. It's like it's less likely that you're going to be back with your original team because all the other 31 teams have a crack at you.
Yeah, but also, I mean, there's that chance that the value doesn't blow up like he and his team might be expecting. And all things being equal, if the number doesn't go too high, I think he wants to be here. He made that pretty clear. Locker cleanout day. I mean, he spoke. I think we both talked to him that day. He ran through all the reasons he loves it here, and how coming here kind of revived his love of the game, and Vic, and just his teammates in the room. And so if the money is similar and the money doesn't go up into the mid-20s like some people are projecting, then I think there is a chance he comes back here. But yeah, you're right. Once you get past that initial, once you get into free agency and everyone has an opportunity to talk to you on Monday, it might be harder.
What's your walkaway number?
I can't see going over 20.
I don't think that's going to get it done.
I don't either.
I'm around 22. And look, there's other variables in a contract. We're talking about it in kind of black and white average annual salary terms, but it's really about the guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Like, we can doctor up these contracts to make them look better than they are. And that's what's going to happen next week. Remember that when you see the 4-year, $100 million contract, that's a 2-year, $50 million contract in actuality. Like, that's
except in Milton Williams' case.
Well, yeah, I don't remember the guaranteed money of that, but it's not like everything's guaranteed in that.
Right. No, that's true.
Yeah.
But the initial numbers that you hear are often not to be believed.
And I don't even mean like the dishonest numbers you hear. It's just like the guaranteed money is ultimately what matters. If there's outs in contracts, the teams are going to be able to take those outs. It's not like you're guaranteed there are no guaranteed salaries, fully guaranteed salaries in the NFL, except for Kirk Cousins that one time.
Yeah, and I guess there's been a couple, but yeah, it doesn't happen.
You want to move the defensive tackle?
Yeah, let's do that.
I have the defensive tackle need level at low, just because the Eagles bring everyone back. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojima, Byron Young, Ty Robinson, and Gabe Hall are still under contract. They don't have any pending free agents at this position. I mean, the real questions here are not about do they go and try to sign someone from outside. It's if and when these contract extensions come down for Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis.
Right. And yeah, they'll both be here next year. It's just a matter of what happens after that. And it's really interesting because Jordan Davis had a better year than Jalen Carter, but I think everybody agrees that Jalen Carter's ceiling is probably a lot higher than Jordan Davis's. But you really appreciate and admire what Jordan Davis did to have the year he had and the work he put in, and just how committed he is to continuing that and building on what he did this past year. I thought he had a Pro Bowl type season. And they play, different positions as well.
And that's why, Jalen Carter is a 3-down all the time player. Whereas I think eventually Jordan Davis might have to be that, but he didn't need to be it this year because he had 2 really good interior rushers.
Right. Yes. So, I mean, like if you could only keep one of them, like Jordan Davis at $20 million or Jalen Carter at $30 million, like who would you keep?
Jalen Carter at $30 million.
Yeah.
He's just, to me, he's different, to put it like just in simplest terms possible. He's just a different type of player. Now, like, are there, if you could get, if you could like combine them and you somehow, because I think there are concerns with Carter that we've seen pop up, some immaturity issues at times. I don't think that's speaking out of turn. Like, we've seen them. And whenever there's a player with some immaturity issues, you do worry about giving him the bag, so to speak, but he's worth it. I mean, he's just a difference-making type of player. There aren't many guys in the league who can do what he does.
Yeah, we've heard Howie talk in general terms about the effect it has on young players when you put $50 million in their pocket, or whatever that the number is. And it is a concern. And Yeah, and you don't have those concerns with Jordan Davis at all.
Yeah, I don't even want to say a concern, but it's like it's in the back of your mind. It's not going to prevent you from doing it because he's that special of a player.
Yeah.
But I think you can extend both of them. I don't think you have to pick.
You could be right.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen this offseason. I think they're going to extend both of them. And then, unfortunately, you're going to lose Morrow after next season. I think he already knows that. I think the team already knows that. It's kind of like losing Milton Williams. You don't want to lose Milt, but it's the situation they're in. And if you get 4 years out of Morrow as a 7th-round pick and he leaves as a free agent, you probably get a comp pick back. You take it.
Yeah, and some of that might have to do with how he plays next year. But, I mean, he's really good. And he's an incredible story for where he was picked and the production they're getting out of him. But, yeah, you can't pay 3 of the 3 interior linemen. You just can't do it. Mm-hmm. And if he just repeats what he did this year, and I think he'll be even better next year. I mean, he's still a young player. A young guy that we thought was kind of a raw project when he got here. His number is going to be pretty high. Probably won't be able to keep him. You're right.
Want to go to linebacker?
Yeah.
I have the need level at linebacker as low. Under contract, Zach Bond, Jahad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Smile Mondin Jr., Chance Campbell, Jose Ramirez. Pending free agent, obviously, Nakobe Dean. Is there any world where Nakobe's back next year?
Never say never, but I really don't see how that could happen. It's hard to imagine that the money out there is not high enough to make it impossible for Howie to bring him back.
I'm going to float something at you, and this is not what I think is going to happen, but I've had this question posed to me. Would you be open to potentially trading Jahad Campbell and re-signing Nakobe Dean?
It's an interesting idea. I'm not sure how much value Jahad Campbell would have on the trade market. I like the player. I think he has a chance to be a good player. But I just can't see. I mean, I can't see getting a whole lot back for him based on his rookie year.
Oh, you don't think so? I think he'd actually have a nice return. Not that I don't think you want to trade a guy you just drafted in the first round, but I think he played really well when he played.
I thought he was good. But again, what kind of value does he have on the trade market? I just don't think it's huge value. I mean, he played well. He's got potential. He's a good guy. He took his demotion really well. Good locker room guy, but yeah, I'm not sure what he's going to bring you back.
Yeah, and I honestly think the bigger issue with that scenario would be you've already paid Zach Bond to keep Nakobe. You're going to have to pay him. Do you want to be paying both of your linebackers big money?
I mean, if I had a chance to keep Nakobe, I would do it. I think he's a special player, and I mean, you'd love to see those two guys get to play together.
Do you think he's a special player?
I do.
Okay. I think he's a good player. I think he's a guy who you like. He's a good player to me. I wouldn't say special. To me, like Zach Bond is a special player. There aren't many guys in the league who can do what Zach Bond does.
I mean, for me, Nakobe had just about a Pro Bowl season 2 years ago. Really active, does a lot of things, does everything well. Hard worker.
We might be getting caught up on the semantics here of what special means.
I mean, I think, like, nothing against Jahad Campbell, but if I had to guess I would think Nakobe's going to have a better career than Jahad Campbell. I'll say that.
That's interesting. I think Jahad has the higher ceiling just because of his athleticism.
Maybe. I mean, Nakobe's probably closer to his ceiling just because he's played longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, I think there's a good chance Nakobe's either hit his ceiling, which isn't a bad thing. He's a really good player, or he's close to it. Whereas, I think Jahad Campbell, after one season, has really just scratched the surface.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Nakobe do it. I haven't seen Jihad do it yet. And I'm not putting Jihad Campbell down. I think he's going to be a good player. I really like Nakobe. You probably like Jihad more than I do, and I like Nakobe more than you do. That's fine.
Yeah, and I think some of that is like what we're looking for in players. Like I do you agree with me that the ceiling is higher for Jihad?
No.
Interesting.
I mean, Nakobe is still a young guy, and he hasn't played a ton of football.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at some of the measurables, the frame, the range, the athleticism, and Campbell has all of that in his favor. And like, there's no question, Nakobe was a better player this past season than Jihad Campbell. There's a reason they were starting him. But if I'm looking like long term, and Jihad's so young, he just turned 22.
No, all that's true. I mean, he's got the build, he's got the frame, he's got the athleticism. But I've seen Nakobe make plays all over the field when he's been healthy, when he's been on the field, and maybe the injuries are part of the equation with Nakobe. I mean, he but I'm a big Nakobe Dean fan.
Yeah, we both agree he's probably not here.
I would agree with that.
Cornerback. I have this need level at medium under contract. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Mac McWilliams, Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett, Michael Carter, Brandon Johnson, Tariq Castro Fields, and Ambry Thomas. The one pending free agent is Adoree Jackson, who is here on a 1-year deal. So we kind of know the situation here, right? They have two incredible starters of the three. They have Quinyon Mitchell, they have Cooper DeJean, and then that third spot was held down by Adoree Jackson last year, despite the Eagles trying at every single turn to upgrade. What are the chances? First, we'll start with Adoree. What are the chances Adoree's back?
I think they're fair. I don't think that there's going to be huge offers. I thought he did play better as the year went on. There were some times, there were moments where he was good, like he made some plays, but I don't know if you can count on that. The consistency wasn't there.
And they helped him by playing him on the field side and letting those throws be harder. But yeah, I give him credit. He played really well. And it felt like I was still holding my breath a little bit. Did you feel that? Like it felt like at times he was just playing above where everyone expected and it was going to crash back to earth. And it never did.
Never really did.
In fact, he got better as the season went on. But I think the fact that they kept trying to upgrade it last year tells you that they're probably going to try it again this offseason.
Yeah, I could see, I don't think he's going to get big offers. I could see him coming back and then they bring somebody to compete with him, either a draft pick or another veteran. But I kind of feel like he's going to be here.
Any chance, before we talk about like outside free agents, any chance any of the other guys I mentioned who are already on the roster could be a starter this year?
I mean, Jacorian Bennett played so well in that Washington game. I could see giving him a shot.
Are you like, is that just a non-starter for you?
I mean, a non-starter to be a starter.
The one game?
No, I mean, no.
I think that's unfair.
What's that?
I think it's unfair to just point at that game.
No, that's probably true. I mean, they're under contract. Him and Keely are under contract. So you look at him in training camp and get a full evaluation. But it's hard to imagine them being a starter, either one of them being a full-time starter.
I agree with you on Keely Ringo. He had every opportunity. He didn't take it. I think that would be tough. Jacorian Bennett, I think you at least take a look at him in a full training camp.
Yeah, like I said, you take a look at him, but I'd be surprised if he wins that job.
How about Mac McWilliams?
They didn't seem to. I mean, he didn't really get any chances to play this year.
Rookie mid-round pick.
But there was obviously a need there, and he was never in the mix. Carter's kind of a slot guy.
And he's not going to be here most likely.
Probably won't be here. I think one thing we know that we, I guess, had some questions about this time last year is where Cooper's going to ultimately play. And I think he's a slot. I think you kind of go into this. I mean, he wants to stay in the slot.
I get all that. I think he's like, it's better for the defense if he's inside, But honestly, this season he proved to me he can play outside.
He can play anywhere. I think he was
this time last year. I think there was a question about whether or not he could play outside.
I think I guess that's true to an extent. I mean, but I think the fact that he wants to stay in the slot, I don't think you're going to move him to become a full-time outside corner against.
Start showing him some contracts around the league for nickel corners versus outside corners. He might change his tune.
That's true, but so far, I mean, he's been pretty strong about wanting to stay inside. So we'll see. But I do think Adori's going to be here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I think there's a better than 50% chance he's here, and you let him compete for that job.
Okay.
And obviously, the draft could change any of that. And Howie's on a roll drafting corners, so
I think it's more likely. All right, this is fun. Is it more likely that their CB2 for this upcoming season is a free agent signing or a draft pick?
You mean if it's not?
If it's not Adoree.
Free agent signing or a draft pick? I would say free agent signing is more likely.
Yeah, I think so too.
Just because to nail another rookie who can start at corner is pretty unlikely.
And you'd have to, generally, you'd have to use a high pick. And
right.
I don't think that's the way they're going to go in the draft.
I agree.
All right, we'll get into some names.
I mean, it's possible you can draft a guy in the third round who blows them away in training camp and wins that job. But that's a long shot.
Yeah, I think so. Safety. I have this at a medium high because you have Andrew Makuba, Sidney Brown, Andre Sam on the roster, pending free agents, Reed Blankenship and Marcus Epps. My view on this is I think Epps would be like a cheap re-sign as kind of a base level starter, and then maybe you try to upgrade after that with a free agent.
Yeah,
or I think a draft pick could be in play here too.
Yeah, and it's a shame. Sidney was a third round pick. You wish he was a factor in this, but I just don't think he will be or should be. But
yeah, I mean, the fact that they were quick to get Epps into that spot tells you where the pecking order lied.
Right. Epps won't cost you anything. You think there's any chance Reed's back?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility. It was funny, watching the safeties at the combine. You're starting to wonder about the free agent crop, and because the safeties in the combine looked pretty good. If you're a team and you can try to draft a safety early or go pay Reed Blankenship $10 million a year, I think you probably draft the safety. So we'll see. I'm very curious about his market. I think it's going to be in that $9 to $11 million range. But if it falls under that, then I think you keep those lines of communication open and you're open to it. Ultimately, I think he's going to get overpaid.
Yeah, I mean, and as good as those safeties looked at the combine, here's a guy who won a Super Bowl. He's been a starter. He's been a good, solid, productive starter for a really good team on a great defense. Smart, good culture guy, good teammate. I think he's getting overpaid as well. But I mean, if I could get him for $8 million a year, I would do it.
Yeah, I see that. To me, he's solid. He's an above average maybe player. I don't even know if he's in good tier. I think he's above average. And I think you get into trouble when you overpay players like that. And it's tough to remove sentimentality from it because he's a guy that he's homegrown. You had him here as an undrafted player. You saw him work his way up, ends up playing in a Super Bowl, then starting in the next one. You like him. He's a defensive captain. I think you get in trouble when you start paying for those things.
I don't know if $8 million is overpaying. I mean, it's not a lot of money the way safeties are getting paid, but
$8 million for Reed versus $1.5 million for Marcus Epps. Where's the better value?
I mean, Reed's better than Marcus Epps.
Mm-hmm.
Epps played okay the end of the year. Probably played better than I expected. Epps seems to me, I think he'd be the kind of guy that the more he played, the more he'd come back to earth a little bit. I'm not sure starting him for 17, 20 games. Well, I guess if he starts for 20, he's done pretty well. But you know what I mean? I just think some of those guys have that point of diminishing returns where, you play them for like 4 or 6 games, they do really well. But the more they have to play, if they become a full-time starter, they're just not that guy. I kind of felt a little bit of that with Big Fred. I know you disagree with me, but
I just think your expectations were too high. He's a backup tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure Epps is more than that. But, I mean, he has started in the league, started a lot more games than Fred Johnson. So I don't think it's a bad approach. If you can get him for $1.5 million, $2 million, why not?
Yeah. So we have some names in front of us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, every position on offense and defense that I had either a medium or a high need level on, we're going to come up with some outside free agents we think might make sense. We'll do that on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We're back on the Eagle Eye podcast brought to you by Nissan, Reuben Frank, and Dave Zangaro. We're going to do this now. We're going to go through the positions that I had either medium or high need level on, and we each picked one, an external free agent. We'll start with receiver. I had the need level at medium. Obviously, that could change based on the A.J. Brown situation. But for right now, it's medium. Give me a name.
I went with Rashid Shaheed. And with all these guys, I tried to, take money into account and not just, sign the best guy out there. He might be a little out of their range. But I like the player, big play guy, great returner. He's going to cost you 12 to 14, maybe something like that. But again, if you do lose AJ, this becomes a much higher, a much greater need if you trade him, not if you lose him, if you trade him. And I think I assume they're going to draft somebody. I think he'd be a good piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, he's a really good player. Meant a lot once they got him over there. Yeah, right now probably out of their price range, but that could change if they don't have their top receiver.
Right.
I went a little more bargain bin, and I cheated here, to be honest with you, because he's not a free agent yet. I kind of think he will be, Calvin Ridley. And this would be kind of bargain bin. This is buying low on a player the Eagles have been linked to for like 5 years, all the way back to when they got A.J. Brown. He's 31 now, so I think he's past his prime, coming off an injury. But if the Titans release him, he wouldn't count toward the compensatory pick formula. You remember the Eagles were like interested in trading for him way back, and then he got hit with that year suspension for the gambling violation. So that their interest in him goes back pretty far. This would be like a value add. It wouldn't be like a game changer.
Yeah, and I mean he was still really good. His last full season 2 years ago, he was over 1,000 yards. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of had a up and down career. You mentioned the suspension, but it's kind of a fun name.
How about tight end? So I have the need level here at high. You want me to give you my player first? We'll kind of alternate. I went with Charlie Kolar, a guy that you might not be too familiar with. He's 27, has been with the Ravens and has been behind really good tight ends in Baltimore. So he hasn't gotten the opportunity to catch a lot of passes. Like his receiving numbers were super low. He had a career high 10 catches last year, but he's an excellent blocker. And I think he has upside as a receiver. I think he'd be a great fit blocking wise in this scheme. And we heard Howie talk about how they need to have a more complementary skill set at that position. I think Kolar would fit that, but also give you some upside in the receiving game. I think that he's a guy that, Isaiah Likely, his teammate, is likely going to get – how many people have made that joke? I'm sorry.
Too many.
He's going to get a lot of money on the open market, whereas Kolar is he's going to slide under that.
It's a good name. I went with kind of a similar guy in Cade Otton. he's kind of a poor man's Dallas Goedert. He's averaged 52 catches, 500 yards in his 4 seasons. He's only 26. Obviously, the Josh Grizzard connection, Tampa. His production has not been as good as Dallas's, but he won't cost as much either, and he's younger. I don't think he's going to break the bank, but he's a solid guy. He's a decent enough blocker, pretty good blocker, actually. The Grizzard connection could be important too here.
Okay. How about offensive line? And this is a tough one because I think it's when we talk about the need of offensive line, which I had it high, I think it's more about finding offensive linemen for the future, and most of that is in the draft. So I don't know if they're going to and honestly, not a lot of great offensive linemen end up on the open market. There are a few this year, obviously, but the Eagles probably aren't going to be in on them. So give me a name.
Yeah, I just went with Cam Robinson as a backup tackle. Guy's been around forever. He started over 100 games. He was a full-time starter with the Browns last year. He's bounced around a little bit. He's not a young guy, but I believe he's 30. But just kind of a solid veteran guy who could play either side.
Yeah, I think he was on a one-year deal last year in Houston.
Sorry?
So, I think he was on a one-year deal last year, just kind of a journeyman at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went with Coyote Awashika. Undrafted to the Eagles several years ago now, still just 27. Played pretty well for the Lions in spot duty over the last few years. Now, I know that Stout is no longer the offensive line coach, but it was still the scouting department in place that found him as an undrafted player, brought him to Philly. I think he can play backup guard for you. He can play backup tackle in a pinch. So I think that's kind of the level signing that we're most likely looking at if we're talking backup offensive lineman.
And he's, I think, one of Stout's big, greatest accomplishments. These kind of guys, undrafted, and just there's so many guys out there in the league, the Suo Pettas and Coyote Awasikas and just
Nate Herbig,
Brett Toth, that just owe Stout their careers. And I think he took special kind of pride in taking those undrafted guys or late round picks and developing them into guys who have long careers and make a lot of money. So Coyote's one of them.
All right, let's flip to defense. At the edge, I had a need level of high. Give me a player.
I went with AJ Epinesa, 27, spent his whole career with the Bills so far. Not tremendous production, but has had a few 6-sack seasons, kind of a rotational guy. Gave you some effort against the run.
Yeah, solid name. I'll go with Bradley Chubb. We've talked about him when he got released or when the Dolphins said they were releasing him. And this is to me, a perfect situation. If you can't re-sign Jalen Phillips, go get another guy with familiarity with Vic, a guy who, again, the compensatory pick formula, he won't hurt you. He's been productive, former first-round pick. I think he would slot in nicely as the third guy behind Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt.
Yeah, that's a good name. And yeah, this is a little different, I think, because you're looking for a rotational guy. You're not looking for a key piece of the puzzle. You're just looking for a guy to fit in and help out.
Now, I do think this is a position where I'd be shocked that they don't add someone in free agency, because numbers wise, they don't have anyone. They're so limited in terms of just raw numbers right now. So even if it ends up being 1-year deals for guys like Azeez Ojulari or Josh Uche or Agbo Okoronkwo, those guys, they're probably going to do that again.
Yeah, and it was disappointing. Azeez Ojulari we never really saw him do much. Uche did a little more, but not a whole lot. Both those guys kind of came in. We had some expectations of them, just didn't work out.
Yeah. How about cornerback? I have the medium need at or the need level at medium.
We have a need for a medium.
Yeah, I'll give you my name first. I went Greg Newsome. Former first-round pick. We know how he likes those former first-round picks. Still a young guy. He's had kind of an uneven career so far. But I like him as a scheme fit in this defense. I think there's a chance he could still put it together, especially if he's in a really good secondary, which I think this one has a chance to be.
You went with Coyote. I'm going with another former Eagle undrafted guy here, Josh Jobe, who was here a couple years, really didn't play much on defense at all, goes to Seattle. He starts out on their practice squad, ends up starting in a Super Bowl and playing really well. A physical guy. He hasn't made any money in his career because he was undrafted, and then he goes to Seattle as a practice squad guy and, makes close to the minimum once he does sign. So he's made under $5 million in 4 years, which it's hard to do that the way the NFL salary structure is these days. I like the player. I'm not sure what the value is going to be, what kind of money he's going to be looking for, but it was really fun to watch him grow from kind of a afterthought here into a Super Bowl starter in Seattle. I'd like to see him get another chance.
Yeah, good story. I had another name for cornerback, and I didn't do it because I thought Eagles fans would be mad at me. Tre'Davious White, who I know is like, people think he's completely cooked. He played all right last year going back to Buffalo. I don't think they wanted him to be a starter, and he started like almost every game, played pretty well. To me, he's like kind of a one-for-one in terms of like, you don't have a Dory Jackson, bring in another veteran like that. They're not opposed to bringing in older veterans at that position. So he's someone that like wouldn't cost you anything. I'd at least kick the tires on. He
was so good when he was good.
Oh yeah. In his prime, he was excellent. He was the guy he was my favorite player of that 17 draft when the Eagles took Barnett. I thought Tre'Davious White would have been a great pick at 14. And he went like much later. I think he went like 27th.
27th. Yeah.
Yeah. I've just always tried to get him here, so I'm still trying. Safety, who you got?
I had medium high on Thompson.
Safety, by the way.
What's that?
I had medium high on safety.
Medium high.
Yeah.
Jalen Thompson, 27, been around, played 7 years.
Cardinals, right?
Yeah. Played for JG, Nick Rallis. Started 15 games. He started 74 games the last 5 years, so he's played a lot of football. He's okay. I think he hasn't really had production as far as takeaways. I don't think he has a pick his last 2 years, but he's had some in the past, and he's just a solid guy who doesn't get takeaways. I think he's a good player. He's a guy who I could see getting overpaid on them. Not overpaid, but he could get like more money than people are expecting. Could be. Yeah. He's not like, not to poo-poo your idea. I'm almost like, I'd rather just pay Reed Blankenship than try Jalen Thompson. Well, the whole idea was outside guys, so that's why I have him. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying like, okay. You can't invent the category and then but yeah, I would rather have Reed than him anyway, myself. Okay. I think Reed will probably get a little more than Jalen Thompson. Probably make a little bit more, but not appreciably. Oh, you think so? I think the opposite. I think Thompson will make a little bit more. We'll see. I want Nick Cross from Indianapolis. They've got a lot of other things to worry about. So maybe Cross kind of slips through the cracks. Super young. Got into the league when he was still 20 years old. So he doesn't turn 25 until September. He's already played 4 seasons. So wow. He got off to a slow start from Maryland. Got off to a slow start in his career a little bit, but has been much more solid in recent seasons. And again, I think he's a guy who his best football might be ahead of him. So I'd be interested in the Nick Cross. He's been better playing close to the line, so you need him to be able to. But I think he's been solid in the post too. So he'd be the guy I'd go after. Good names. Okay. Well, it was fun. Yeah. We've prolonged it long enough. Let's talk about A.J. Brown. We'll start with the news that DJ Moore is getting traded to Buffalo. So in the deal, reportedly, Buffalo gets DJ Moore and a 2026 5th-round pick. Chicago gets a 2nd-round pick this year. Pretty good return. Yeah. Return that, sure, maybe it means one less possible destination for A.J. Brown, but that return has got to make Howie Roseman pretty happy as he's looking for more than a first. Yeah, no question about it. That's a lot.
Yeah, especially for a guy who's like, he's a good player, DJ Moore. The production is nowhere near the level of what we've seen from AJ Brown. So anyone who thinks AJ Brown's not going to get a first round pick, I think this is a big hit in that department. I do think he's worthy of a first round pick. So the most recent reporting about the ask for AJ Brown came from Mike Garafolo, who said the Eagles are asking for a first and second round pick. I think that's probably unlikely, but I think a first round pick is very much in play.
I think a first and something else. It won't be a 2, but something.
And if it has to be like a pick swap where the Eagles have to give up a 5 and they get a 4, like whatever.
Yeah.
Just so both sides feel like they win. That's what a lot of times it is at the end, where you have a late round pick swap and it's like, all right, we both want to feel like we're coming out on top here. Just let's figure this out.
You know, I'm looking at DJ Moore's production has been pretty better than I thought. He's averaged over 1,000 yards in his 8 seasons, 5 in Carolina, 3 in Chicago. Had a 1,300-yard season with 8 touchdowns a couple years ago. He's had 4,000 seasons. Sorry?
Is that in Carolina?
That was his first year with the Bears.
Okay. Because in Carolina, I think he had Joe Brady, who's now going to be his head coach.
Right. So he had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. In 2020, averaged 18 yards a catch, 1,200 yards. He's got 40 career touchdowns, over 8,000 yards in his career. So the production has been better than I thought. Last year was a down year, 50 for 682, and he's 28, so we'll see where he goes from there. But he's had a nice career. Never made a Pro Bowl, but I wonder how many players have had averaged over 1,000 yards in their first 8 seasons and never made a Pro Bowl. We'll look that up, but I'll wait till we're done.
Thank you.
I know you had that look on your face.
Say,
like, no, please don't.
AJ Moore gets you a second. AJ Brown gets you first.
Yeah.
Okay. And look, I know that so we heard that report from Garafolo. There have been other reports that the Eagles' asking price is very high. There was a report from the Boston Herald that said that the Patriots felt the asking price was unserious right now. It's like every year at this time of the year, we forget how negotiating works. This is how it works. You start off asking for a lot, the other team balks, and then eventually you try to move it in the right direction and find some middle ground. Like the Eagles should ask for the world. They don't have to trade this guy.
Right.
At least they want to give off the impression that they don't have to trade this guy. It helps your leverage a little bit. And you ask for a ton. You're probably not going to get it, but you have to start somewhere.
And maybe you will.
Maybe you will. Yeah, you probably will.
Okay.
But you got to start somewhere.
You have to.
Yeah. So that's been the quick AJ Brown portion of this podcast. We don't have to keep doing that, right?
No.
All right. You want to do some questions?
Yeah.
Let's get into questions. If you have one for us, it's eagle-eye at NBC Uni. That's eagle-eye at NBCUNI.com. First one is from Harry. Hey guys, I enjoy your podcast and I think you do an excellent job. Is it possible that the Eagles could bring Jeff Stoutland back in the scouting department? Do you think he would have any interest in that kind of role?
I don't think Jeff Stoutland has a lot of interest in coming back to this franchise. I would
at least maybe not right now.
Yeah, maybe one day, but I just don't see it happening. I
think he'd be excellent.
Yeah.
In like some sort of a advisory scouting role for offensive linemen. I think he still wants to coach. I don't think it's going to be here. I think he's going to coach elsewhere next season, but
that'll be weird.
It will be weird. Yeah, it's going to hurt to see him coaching elsewhere. But I do agree that he has an eye. And I think that, and we've talked so much about how different their scouting process might be without him. I really do think a lot of what he brought has rubbed off on Howie and the rest of the scouting department. I think that they're going to continue to look for a lot of those quote unquote critical factors going forward.
Yeah. And Howie said as much. And I mean, they spent so much time together that you would think there's been a lot of exchange of ideas there that has made Howie better at evaluating O-linemen.
Yeah.
We will see.
It's still weird to think the Stout's not the O-line coach, isn't it?
It is.
Very strange. Next one is from Brandon. Hey guys, Nick Sirianni is only 44 years old and he has an offensive background. He wanted the Shanahan scheme in his new OC. With the turnover at the position and with Nick being labeled a CEO coach, what are the chances he's going to dive in and learn the offensive system so that he can be the continuity they need? Does he have the time to? It's 100% what I would do if I were him. Do you think he's going to take it upon himself to learn Mannion's offense and increase his own value as a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's still going to function as an offensive coach, even if it's not his offense. I mean, he'll still be really involved in install and all that stuff. So yeah, he's going to be learning as much as he can about the scheme, and to the point where he can, in his mind, contribute where he has to and when he has to, when he wants to and needs to.
Yeah, it's a fun thought because, whether it's like this guy, you always go back to like Sean McVay, right? Like this guy had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay in 2017. He's ready to be a head coach. It's like, well, yeah, if Nick spends this year, maybe next year as the head coach in this offense, I would think that it would just naturally rub off on him. Even if he didn't try to work at it, I think a lot of it would rub off on him. But yeah, it's a good thought that like, yeah, if he makes a concerted effort that this is the offense they want to run, maybe he can be that continuity. I know people don't have a lot of faith in Nick as an offensive coach. I get that based on what we saw last year and at times throughout his tenure here, but it's a good thought. And we talk so much about other coaches, like, this coach had a year in Miami under Mike McDaniel, so he knows the system. Yeah, why can't Nick Sirianni learn the system?
Yeah, no, he's going to be involved. Hopefully not to the point where he's stepping on Sean Mannion's toes, but I mean, even if you're a defensive coach, you're going to understand the basic principles of what your offense is doing. So certainly Nick will.
Yeah. Next one is from Robbie. Hey, fellas from Northern Idaho. A pod or two ago, you mentioned A.J. Brown not being untouchable, but a couple others such as Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts. I'm curious if A.J. didn't create the drama he did this past season and last year put up the numbers he did, also drew the attention he does, would he be considered an untouchable by Howie? Second part, who would you say are Howie's untouchables? Thank you for the pod. It's been my top podcast on Spotify 3 years in a row.
What was wrong with 2022? Why is it just 3 years? No. Yeah, and when Howie talks about this, his thing is there's a price for everybody. I'd be stupid not to listen to offers for anyone because maybe it's something that can make the team better. But in practice, I think there are some untouchables. Like contracts come into play with that, but I don't think there's a whole lot on this team.
I mean, who's untouchable?
I still think Jalen is.
Okay. I think Lane, just because he's in year 14, he might be like, I'm not playing anywhere else.
Yeah, you're not going to trade Lane Johnson. So they might be the only ones. I can't see any circumstances where you would trade Q or Cooper.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking Jalen Carter.
Well,
I mean, maybe if they decided like, hey, there's one of these guys we can't pay, we got to get something.
Yeah, and if his number, like if he's like, I want $45 million a year, then maybe you start thinking that way. But there's not many.
Yeah. I don't think there's like concrete untouchables. There are obviously guys that wouldn't make sense to trade.
Yeah.
Next one is from Thomas. Gentlemen, love the show. Never miss an episode. My question to you is this. If Dallas Goedert has played his last game ever as an Eagle, is he hanging up the cleats as the best Eagles tight end of all time? Has he done enough to pass Zach Ertz?
I would say no. I think Ertz still, gosh, I mean, that Super Bowl, the fourth down catch and then the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Goddard's been really, really good. I think Ertz's best seasons are better than Goddard's best seasons.
Certainly from a statistical standpoint. It's a little tough because then you end up with like Goddard was obviously a better dual threat earlier on in his career than Ertz ever was. But the high level production from Ertz is tough to ignore.
Yeah, 3 Pro Bowls, those 3 years in a row. I mean, he had over 100 catches one year. I'd still put Zach ahead of him.
Is Zach Ertz the best tight end in Eagles history?
Yeah, and then you get into that thing where like what was Pete Retzlaff? Was he an end? Was he a tight end? There were years before they called it a tight end.
Yeah, I don't know what you consider Retzlaff. Maybe we go like Super Bowl era.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Keith Jackson, who had a very, short, I think 4 years here. He was a 2-time All-Pro, but
so if we're going Super Bowl, we take out like Pete Pihos too, right? Like,
right.
Because I think you're right. It's tough to like. How do you stack up Retzlaff and Pihos?
Selleck had a nice career. Chad Lewis, but I think it's got to be Ertz and then Goddard and then Selleck.
Ertz, Goddard, Selleck, and then.
And I put Keith Jackson there somewhere, but it was just such a short time here.
Yeah, Keith Jackson probably ahead of Chad Lewis, or do you go Chad Lewis for the?
Keith Jackson ahead of Chad Lewis, yeah.
Okay. Chad played longer here, right?
Yeah. I think Keith Jackson was only here 4 years, and then, he was part of that lawsuit for free agency, and they won, and he became a Dolphin.
Yeah, that's interesting. But Goddard's right up there. I mean, he's had a really good career here.
Yeah, he really has. He'll be missed.
Yeah. All right. If you have a question for us, eagleeye@nbcuni.com. That QR code is on the screen for another second, so go ahead and send us those questions. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, I left some time. I don't know why. I feel like you have something to say today. You have anything on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to, one of our longtime colleagues, Ashley Hall, is leaving our company. I wanted to give her a shout out, wish her luck. She's been with us for 9 years. And she's total pro. She's the one that gets us these shirts. And she does all our promotions and marketing and stuff. And whenever you come out to see us do like a live Q&A at a bar, she set that up. She's been great to work with, good friend, and we'll miss her.
Yeah, I tried to reject her resignation and didn't stick.
Yeah, I was surprised because I thought you had a lot of pull with that.
I thought so. I guess not. Yeah, we will miss her. Anything else on our minds?
I saw a great concert Tuesday night, Rap Boys at the church, Unitarian Church, which was packed beyond belief. They had squeezed 600 people in this little room. But they're amazing. They're probably one of my favorite bands going right now. So it was great, Great night.
How do you feel about going? I saw you didn't love the venue and the setup.
No.
What's the level of an artist where you like them enough to endure a crappy setup?
That conversation came up that night with some friends of mine. They're like, how many bands would you see here? And I think the answer was 5. I would go see Spoon there. I would go see Guided by Voices there. I'd probably go see. I saw Rap Boys. There's not many. Wilco, if they decided to play in a small basement on Chestnut Street, but not many. Yeah, it's a horrible
badge of honor.
Terrible place.
All right. That's good. Let's end this podcast. Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro.
In the middle of their set, a guy came up to me and he's like, "Rube, the Sixers getting killed." So that was pretty funny. I appreciated the update.
I might have seen the last good Sixers game ever when I was in Indianapolis.
They are a mess. Meanwhile, McCain is having a great run with OKC. I don't know what that was all about. That trade was ridiculous. Anyway, I don't want to get off on too many tangents here.
Well, we're done, so you can keep going after we finish the pod. Just talking to the void for a while. Reuben Frank, Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. Next week, we'll plan on our normal podcast. We'll probably have more. There's going to be news. We'll be here every step of the way, and we'll talk to you soon.